I don't know how many other father-son rebuild teams at dealerships there are in America's North, but I don't think there's too many.
I'm Tyler Simmons. Welcome to In the Yard, a Western States podcast. From employees with decades of experience to customers working hard in the field, join me for conversations with some of our industry's best and brightest to hear their stories in the heavy equipment world. Episodes will drop bi-weekly, so see you in the yard. Marc, thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah.
Glad you're here. Give us a quick introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what your role at Western States is here.
Yeah, my name is Marc Holmes. I've been at Western States for 16 years. All of it has been in the product support side of the business, mainly service, and have pretty much been in almost every role in the service department over the 16 years. Starting out as a technician, and coming through the service manager and into the rebuild specialist role that I'm in today.
So, long time here at the cat dealer, Western States, right?
Mm-hmm.
Lots
Yep.
of different roles in those things.
Yep.
Did your journey start in the Caterpillar world at Western States, or did it start before then?
No. So I graduated high school, went through a diesel program, and then I started with Cashman back in the early 90s.
Oh, wow.
And so I was with Cashman as a field technician all through the 90s until the early 2000s. And then I had an opportunity. So my whole tenure at Cashman, I was in field service.
Okay.
And I had the opportunity to mentor under two of the best cat field technicians in the Western United States at the time. And so that really propelled my service career and understanding primarily what clients need as well as what technicians need to be successful.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
So started Cashman early 90s. Is that the timeline
Mhm.
there? Okay,
Yep.
cool. And what was your first role at Cashman?
Field technician.
Oh, so right out of school, right into the field truck.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, wow. That's
So-
way cool.
yeah.
Mainly focused on construction or mining, or what?
That's all mining down there.
Mhm.
I was able to be part of the field follows.
Okay.
So like when the D10R came out in the end of 95, that was a big deal for us in Caterpillar. So there was 5 field follow machines in the United States, and we had one of them in Nevada. So I was involved in that field follow project with the D10R.
Okay, so that's crazy. So early on in your career, you got mentored by two of the best field techs down in Cashman's region and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Which mentors have a huge impact on your career and your trajectory, right? Especially if they dial it in and help you along the lines, right?
Exactly.
And that's pretty cool. And then let's talk about this D10R field follow thing, because that's D10Rs. That's cool. Like today we're on the D10. We just got rid of the T, so now it's just a D10, right?
Yeah,
So if we go back, that's a lot of generations ago when that R first came out.
it is.
So what was so cool about the D10R when it first came out?
It was the first electronic controlled D10,
Okay.
essentially. So, and that was in 1995. So that was right about the time where Caterpillar and electronics were really coming into line. Prior to that, everything was mechanical controlled, and there wasn't very much electronics on the machine. The reason why the era was really special for me is because prior to 95 in the Caterpillar world, there wasn't anybody that was really good at Caterpillar electronics. And with me being in my early 20s at the time, that was the way I was wired. So it was just a natural fit for me to go into the electronic side of what Caterpillar did. So at that time, we had obviously a whole bunch of senior technicians, field technicians. They didn't want anything to do with electronics at that time, which worked out good for me because I didn't want anything to do with a 1970s crawler tractor. So we ended up doing a lot of swapping back and forth and helping each other, and got a project for a newer machine with electronics. Then they looped me in, and then we worked on it together. So by not intentionally, but by doing that several years, I then became that mentor that I had. And so I ended up mentoring technicians through the electronic phases of Caterpillar in the 90s. And so I just have a natural desire to do that. And so I carried that through for the next 20, 30 years to today. So trying to mentor everybody I work with. making their lives better.
Yeah, you've been a mentor to mine. We can talk more about it later today too, but you've been a mentor to me in a lot of reasons, in a lot of aspects, personally and professionally. And I can say that you do live that every day, and you do if you do provide that feedback and that input, and sometimes the hard conversation, right? As a mentor, you're not always delivering the best news.
Right.
Sometimes it's the hard conversation somebody needs to hear to understand that something needs to be different, and also encouragement. And so it's really cool to see you connect that and then pay that forward through your career.
Yeah.
So D10R, do you have any cool stories about the D10R when you were doing the field follow?
Oh gosh. So I was following around 30 machines.
Okay.
From anywhere from Western Nevada to Salt Lake City, all over the place.
So Cashman, you spent some time at Cashman. What happened? What were the next steps after Cashman?
Next steps after Cashman. In the end of the 90s, I was heavily engaged with the 992G wheel loader when it first came out.
Okay.
And so I became, had a very high association with that machine. I knew the performance of it very well. Newmont Mining Corporation had a fleet of them in South America and Peru.
Okay.
And so I left Cashman to work for Newmont Mining in Peru. And so moved the family down there for a year and worked with the local Peruvian technicians and mentored them on rebuilding and performing maintenance on 992G wheel loaders.
Oh, that's okay. So you're in Elko, right? Is where you were at working for Cashman.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
You were born and raised in Elko, or
no?
Okay.
I was raised in Salmon, Idaho.
So raised in Salmon, moved to Elko to go to school, do those things. So let's talk me through the conversation that it probably was with your wife about, hey, we're going to go to Peru and we're gonna go work on 992s in Peru, and you're all coming with. What did that conversation look like? Yeah.
So at that time, Brock was 6. Okay. And his little brother was 4, and it was an opportunity that doesn't come along very often. So we flew down initially and did a site tour, and really liked it, and so we were all in.
Oh, nice. So Newmont flew you guys down, showed you the site. So what was it like in Peru? What was that first site tour and the first time getting there? What was it like? What was it, a man camp setup, or what was the mine? What did life at the mine look like?
Well, we lived in town,
okay.
So it wasn't a camp or anything like that. But you were completely immersed. But the company had obviously tons of support. And but the first flight into Cajamarca was pretty crazy, because you're in about a 18-passenger plane, and you're flying in over the Andes, so it was pretty bumpy. So that was the first roller coaster ride we had in an airplane. So that was our first impression, and then it was just so much fun doing that.
That's cool. So what was it like in Peru? I mean, so 992Gs down there. How many 992Gs did they have at site that you were at?
Yeah, they had about a half a dozen of them.
Okay.
With 994s as well.
994. That's a pretty good pass match. That's a nice setup down there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
the site was at 14,000 feet. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, you had to get acclimated to the elevation. So you drink a lot of coca tea and different things like that.
That's funny. Yeah. So 14,000 feet. So did you guys have to do anything special with the machines? Because isn't it after 10,000 feet, it's kind of pretty much all diesel engines in the cat world are rated to 10,000 feet elevation, right?
It is, yeah. So the cat gear was all high elevation machines.
Okay.
So essentially in a 777 haul truck, they had a 785 engine.
Okay.
So they were all high altitude applications.
So just put a larger displacement engine to get the power out of them.
Because the air is so much thinner.
That's crazy. Yeah. So like even going, you were up there working on stuff, did you notice a difference in the elevation and what that was?
Oh yes. Yeah. It's like getting up and taking a lunch break and then going to Bogus and doing a hike and then coming back.
Every day
for your lunch break.
Yeah. Oh geez.
Yeah.
So did you guys live at 14,000 feet, or what was your
No,
guess? Okay.
we lived in town. Town's about 9,000 feet, if I remember.
Oh, see, that's
right.
still really high, though.
Hmm.
That's crazy. That's an experience and a half being down there.
It was.
How did the kids like it?
The kids liked it. They really did. Of course, they were 4 and 6.
Yep.
But it was amazing how fast they pick up that language.
That's
but
funny.
watching the kids in that environment was amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
It really was. So
That's like you said, once in a lifetime experience,
it was.
right?
Yeah. It
Wow.
was.
So how long were you guys in Peru for?
Just a year.
Just
yeah.
a year in Peru?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then came back, and we knew we wanted to relocate back to Idaho.
Okay.
And so I had an opportunity to interview for the branch manager's job for Colfax, Washington.
Okay.
And I interviewed Gary Anderson. And so
Oh, wow.
and so Gary hired me, and that was in the spring of '04.
Yep.
So
There you go. And who's Gary Anderson, real quick?
Gary Anderson is our pricing supervisor.
There you go.
He leads our pricing team.
Yep. But Gary's been at Western States for a long time. He's quite
Long time.
He's a legend.
Yes, he is.
He is,
Yeah,
and what a stud.
Yeah.
That's it's pretty cool that to think about, because Colfax, that was Western. What year was that for Western States? That had to have been like 2004-ish.
Yes.
2004 is when you hired on, roughly. Okay.
Yep. And so then I went from mining to agriculture within a couple of months. So I had and so the other learning curve I had was in mining. If you needed a part, you just
Bought the part
You bought the part. You bought a seat on an airplane. You did whatever you had to do
to get the part.
to get the machine up and running. So I had that same mindset. The Challenger was down. I flew in the parts. We got the machine back up again, and then I found out that the particular customer has never paid freight before in his life.
Oh,
so
different sense of urgency.
Yeah,
and
different sense of urgency, and so that was a great learning curve for me that I got to experience.
Yeah.
So
I was going to say, that's what I was going to ask you, because the mining industry and the ag industry are two very different industries, right? And as a dealer, we have to adjust our styles to whatever that industry is to meet the needs of the customer, right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I think that's the one cool thing. If you look at like Western States and all our stores around, each store has its own little different personality based on what it needs to do to serve that community that they're in, right? And Colfax was a good example of that, and kind of serving that Palouse, high production, high yield products that come out of there, because it's really impressive what they farm back up in there. It's kind of a little hidden gem.
It is. Yeah.
You're in Peru.
Yeah.
You're in Colfax. Those are some big changes there.
Yep.
Yeah. And then where'd you go from Colfax?
Came to Meridian down
Okay.
there to work in the service department.
Okay.
And so started in here as a service advisor.
Okay.
And was in that role for, I would say, between service advisor, service supervisor from up until 2012.
Okay.
So,
Doing service office work and some stuff like that.
Yeah. Was always trying to figure out, how to do things better for the service department. What works better, what doesn't work better. So at that time, we were looking at transitioning to automated time collection for technicians. And so once I had a map of what that looked like, before the time collection system was in place, I wanted to try to figure out how to bring the technicians up to speed, actually before it was time to go live. So one of the projects I did was I took the screen of what the technicians were going to be using to enter their time and just mapped it in Excel.
Okay.
And then I created Excel timesheets for all the technicians. And so, and they used that, and we were basically training the technicians in real time when they didn't even know they were going to be trained for the new system.
Oh, wow.
So we did a lot of work like that in the service department.
Nice. So that's pretty cool to think about, right? So if you go kind of your career of working on some really cool projects and troubleshooting and critical thinking, that stacks into those, and then stacking that into the service office work
Mm-hmm.
and trying to figure out, okay, how are we going to always improve and make the business better, and then applying it to a group of people. That's pretty impactful, and being ahead of the thought process of where you needed to be.
Right.
That was cool.
Yeah. And that came from early years of being a technician and working with a mentor, because when you're truly working with another person or a group of people, you're trying to think ahead of where you need to be 3 steps from now.
Yep, so that way everybody can kind of come with and go forth from there. That's pretty cool. The first time you and I met is, I think, when I came back from Pasco to Meridian, and I remember the day I walked in with my coveralls on, ready to go turn wrenches, and you're like, hey, no, you're going to go answer phones. You seem to like to talk a lot, so we're just going to put you in the office and see if it works for you.
Right.
So that was our first interaction. I'm sure there was probably another way you said that, but that was the piece of it, right? And jumping into the service office here in Meridian, and that was an animal. And I didn't realize that when I jumped into it, what it's like to be in that service office, to understand everything that needs to be done. Coming as being a technician, being out in the field and understanding that, and then you start to learn the service office process and what it takes to make sure we meet the needs of the customer within their budget and within their timeline, as well as fix the machine in a manner that's going to produce for them. Right? There's this constant push and pull back and forth to do that, and you taught me a lot of those skills, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, you taught me a lot of things about business process and what goes on there, and understanding of that, and just, I think that thought process you have really shows through in a lot of things that you do, like even today, because you're focused on rebuilds today, and that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
So service office work for a while, and then when did you jump into the rebuild role that you're in today?
Yeah. So I had an opportunity in 2012. I left the company.
Okay.
And I had an opportunity because I had open pit global mining, I had agriculture, construction here in Meridian, and I had an opportunity to learn CAD underground mining.
Oh, wow.
And so I left in 2012 and actually worked for a client for 4 years and learned CAD underground.
Okay.
And so between Nevada and Alaska, I was working in CAD on our CAD R1600, R1700, 8030 type fleets, and so spent 4 years learning CAD underground, and was ready to come back to Western States and resume normal operation.
Yeah. So what's we have a little bit underground mining in our territory from there, but I haven't been exposed to it a ton. I've been more under surface stuff and surface mines, so I'm pretty familiar with what that looks like. So tell me a little bit about the underground world. What is that like, and some of those details?
Yeah, underground world is completely different. And urgencies are much higher. The underground contractors, they get paid for advancement for linear foot. So uptime and response time and efficiency is extremely important.
Okay.
So learned how to do that, and learned how to not only be accurate but be very quick at it at the same time. And again, mentoring and working with technicians to get them to replicate that as well.
Oh, wow. Well, let's have a cool underground story, right? Because I've heard some stories they are that down like 130 degrees at the stope, like stuff like that goes on.
Yeah.
And some crazy hot, weird environments those machines work in.
Yeah, so Nevada particularly, so the whole state of Nevada is geothermal.
Okay.
A lot of people know that. So, but it's very, very hot because of that. So that was the first time in my life I've ever drank 3.5 gallons of water in one day and never peed once.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's hot.
It's hot, sweating it all out all day.
But
wow.
Yeah, it's just an incredible experience. Incredible people. Just the whole thing is really good. Alaska is just the opposite.
Okay.
Alaska is 58 degrees year round. It's
Underground.
The best place to be in Alaska. So 58 degrees underground and 35 below on surface. So
yeah, definitely take the underground situation.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
That's really interesting, and I guess I never really connected the dots of like starting out as a young tech, working on some of the surface stuff and big stuff, going to Peru, working on large mining equipment, agriculture and construction, and then underground.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, you've been all over about every chapter book. The only chapter book you haven't really been in is the power systems one.
Yeah,
Right?
power side and marine.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you just take every step of the way, you learn things to apply to the next one, and so that's where when fast forward when I landed into the rebuild position, it really felt like I've spent 30 years preparing for this role.
Okay.
And that's why it feels like it's such a fit for me. So.
Because you're able to take all those previous experiences, right?
Right.
So
Right.
somewhere in the timeline here, Brock came to work, your boy Brock, right? Which we've done an episode with Brock and talked through him a little bit about that, which was phenomenal, right? And really cool to see just because watching, you know, I got to kind of see Brock grow up adjacent. Brock and I are pretty close in the same age, but just adjacent, right? And then to see him apply himself and what's happening there is really cool. When did Brock come to work to Western States? When did he come here?
Yeah, so he would have started in 2014 when he graduated high school.
Okay.
And went right into Think Big.
Okay. Were you working for Western States at that time, or were you working?
No, I was working underground at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's still, okay, that's kind of a cool story though, right? So not here at Western States, but Brock ends up working here to go through the Think Big program.
Right.
So how did that happen? Because I'm sure you had some coaching, influential father conversations with Brock on what life was going to look like, just like all fathers do, right?
Brock's Caterpillar career started when he was 3.
Okay, hang on. What do you mean it started when he was 3?
Well, he was managing a whole fleet of equipment when he was 3. So he had every single model that there was and a die-cast cat toy at 3 years old. So
okay,
that's when his cat career started. And then I told this story, I think, in LinkedIn, but I was not working at the mine one weekend, so I was working in town. And so I had the opportunity to bring Brock to work with me because it was on a Saturday, and they were running a fleet of scrapers building a new hospital. And so I had the opportunity to take him to work with me that day. So I had him stay in the service truck while I tested a 631 scraper. Okay. Well, and I told our manager that we were going to be there and what we were doing. And so she showed up with lunch. And so pulled up, and she didn't see Brock. And I wasn't there, and there were scrapers going all around, and so it was Brock was just standing in the front of the service truck, right at the bumper, watching all the scrapers. Right.
Yeah. Couldn't sit in the truck. Had to get out to be a part of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so I parked the scraper, walked over, settled the manager down, and that was the end of Brock's field career at 3 years old.
Okay.
But anyway, but yes, so Brock's been engaged with Caterpillar and obviously following me and us being engaged the whole time.
Yeah.
So when Brock was a sophomore in high school, he was obviously very mechanically inclined and into cars and doing all that, and so just his natural progression into Caterpillar came easy for him because he was very good in his thought processes and how he did. So to see him come into the Caterpillar world, and especially for Western States, has been especially rewarding for me.
And then you have another son too, Riley, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
he's an EMT or a firefighter?
He's a firefighter paramedic here locally. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool, man.
Yeah.
So you got 2 boys just getting after it every day.
Yeah. We were pretty blessed because both boys pretty much had their career paths figured out when they were 16.
Oh, wow.
So
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
So Brock decides to come here to do Think Big, right? Did you introduce that program to him, or did he kind of already have it picked out and understanding that's the path he wanted to go?
Yeah. So obviously his association with me, we knew that Think Big was, he wanted to pursue that path, and so with me being with Western States, we had that kind of lined out. and had our eye on that, and so that's how he got started, and he just excelled extremely well at it, and
Yeah.
did performed well in Portland when he was in school, and came back and worked in the shop and did well there too, and so when I returned at the end of 2016, we were just starting our rebuild, really kicking off our rebuild program with in 2016. Brock got involved in that when I came back, and he started rebuilding machines. And I don't know how many other father-son rebuild teams at dealerships there are in America's North, but I don't think there's too many.
So why would a customer want to rebuild a machine? Like why would that even be in the thought process or scope?
Yeah, so customers want to rebuild their machines primarily because they like the machine that they have. It performs, does the job that they want it to do, and without talking models or specifics, Western States' strategy is to rebuild a customer's general line machine for approximately half the price of a new machine.
Okay. So it kind of gives you that second life or second generation out of the machine without the capital invested to buy a new.
Right, to lower their total operating costs.
Over the course of the life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when a customer's looking at doing a rebuild, what decision points go into play? Like so if a customer calls you up, if I called you up today and said, hey Mark, I got a D8, I'm thinking of doing a rebuild. So actually let's do a D10R, something you're familiar with. Let's say I got a D10R and I need to do a rebuild on it.
Yeah.
What's the process going to look like?
So what we like to do is just lead with 3 questions and really simplify this thing for the customers. First thing we want to know is, like I mentioned, does the machine do what you need it to do? Mm-hmm. Okay. If your business has changed and the machine doesn't no longer fit the needs, then we don't have a rebuild conversation. We're looking at getting you into a newer model that performs better. Okay. The second question we ask is do you want a new machine? Okay, the operator station improvements that it has, lower fuel consumption, lower emissions, all of these things, and higher production of a new machine. Do you want a new machine? And then the third question is do you have a rebuildable machine in the first place? Has it reached the end? Is the frame end of life? Is there fire damage? Anything like that, right? So those 3 simple questions really do help move the customers off of the fence on day one to get them to help them decide whether they rebuild or we replace. And that's really what it's about.
Now it's Brock's working on it, which is again the father-son rebuild team, which is kind of cool to think about, right? He has stories of where customers comes in and he gives them a little tour of the rebuild, right? And you guys, that's like, so what's that process look like? Because I think that's pretty unique, right? Of having the technician that just tore that thing down, walk you through it.
Yes, it's actually a very crucial part of the Western States rebuilds, especially when you have somebody like Brock who can't lie.
That's very true about Brock.
So the customer comes in, Brock walks them around, and at the end of the conversation, the client feels like he's got a friend, and that's telling him exactly what he wants to hear, and nothing that he doesn't want to hear, and it's a very realistic, great experience, and Brock's a huge part of that. So, but so Brock tears it down, and so. Obviously, there's a feedback channel from Brock to his dad when something doesn't get put in right. So,
oh, there you go. Quick communication.
Very quick.
There you go.
Quick, yes.
He definitely lets you know when you missed the quote or missed something in the details, I'm assuming.
Yes.
You definitely know your gaps. Talk about process improvement. Yes. And what was really cool is that, Brock is kind of the, when we think of rebuilds here in Meridian, Brock plays a big part of that in the volume, but there's a whole team of guys down there working with Brock every day.
There is, very much so.
Yeah. And they throw out quality work every time out the other side of that rebuild.
They do. And so Brock gets to test a lot of the new stuff that I come up with as far as rebuilds. Both of us are here. He usually has one lined up after another, and so we'll test some things on a rebuild as far as process goes, and then we'll apply it on the next one, or we won't apply it on the next one. It just depends on what works better.
That's cool.
It's just a continuous improvement.
Yep. So we don't just rebuild machine, so if my D10 comes in, right, and we're doing it, we do it. If I'm in a different store, a different location, the machine can be rebuilt in another store, right? So what other stores do rebuilds for Western States?
Yeah, so we're doing rebuilds on almost every location at
Okay.
some level.
Okay.
And so Pasco, Washington is really heavy in as far as waste, and landfill compactors and things like that, where we have the mining gear in Missoula and Pocatello. So regardless of the location, our rebuild processes are the same.
Yeah.
And so
What's cool is like the centralized piece of it, right? And I'm familiar with Pasco. We got like Wes up there, right, that has rebuilt a lot of compactors too, right?
Yes.
And those guys have gotten super proficient at running those compactors through up there, and that's a pretty phenomenal process as well that they've got.
It is. It is. So the process that Wes follows and the process that Brock follows is pretty much identical now.
Oh wow, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
And then down in Pocatello, we're doing more mining trucks, mining equipment, and component swaps. Just because the gear is so much bigger, right? They really don't come to size.
Yeah, with mining, you don't do a lot of bringing the whole machine in. It's more done at a component level over the life of the machine.
Yeah, it's cool. It's just really cool to think about, like geographically, and how diverse our territory is in what we get to serve and help our customers with, right? And then the expertise of all of our different technicians for the different types of machines that are within that region. I mean, we're pretty fortunate on that front.
So you bring that up. So our part of this 4-year journey of building our rebuild process, every dealer brings this conversation up, is that our tenured technicians are retiring, they're moving on, and we're losing that skill set. And so we have spent literally 4 years building a rebuild process that allows us to leverage our up-and-coming technicians, our developing technicians, and actually utilize them to rebuild machines.
See, that's awesome.
And that's been a really big thing to be, a fun thing to be part of, and to see that grow.
Yeah, because it's enabled the success of a lot of stores, right? And where the skill set maybe was needed to be developed and going through. And for technicians, I think, like even me as a tech, just understanding that there's that development and those opportunities, if I'm willing to take them, are there. And then that's a huge impact overall to our whole organization and what that is. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it feels really good to stand up and say we're not a dealer that is not rebuilding machines because we don't have enough tenured technicians.
Yeah.
So
we've got it dialed in a good process.
We're good to go.
That's pretty awesome.
Good to go for future growth. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so we've got my D10 tore down. I just did this great tour that Brock told me all the things that were truthful and honest, because I know Brock, and that's what we're gonna get, right? So we're putting my machine back together, right? And it comes out the door. So when it's done, and we go to deliver, the rebuild's done, we're gonna deliver to the customer. What's the delivery process look like of that rebuilt machine?
Yeah, so it varies a little bit depending on scope. A large rebuild, I'll actually follow that machine back to the site.
Okay.
And make sure that the customer understands the changes that were made to the machine, improvements, upgrades that we talked about, and really wrap that experience up as far as delivering the machine back and the customer knowing that Western States is behind that rebuild. It's just not something we're going to drop off and drive away from. So we really do bring the house when we deliver the rebuild back to the customer.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and we cover everything from the extended protection plan that the machine has, like I said, the changes that's made, and we stay engaged with the client for as long as he needs us to.
That's pretty cool. Man, it's really cool to think about, your history and career and the progression you've had, right? And you getting to the spot and the role you're in today where you've been able to stack that all together, right? And apply every bit of your knowledge along the way, from being a technician to how the machine works, and service office, customer experience, being a customer of the dealer, and using those things to put out a phenomenal product on the other side and help influence and help our whole team and lift all ships, right, to be successful.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's been a fun journey, it really has.
Nice, that's pretty cool, man. Nice. Well, cool, Mark. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for inviting.
Yeah, and for me personally, thank you for being a mentor in my life. There's some key, I think back of people that have influenced and been a part of key steps along the way. you're one of those for me, and it started in Meridian in the service office, and just the thought process and your willingness to help me and coach me. Big Daddy Shears was a part of that too. You and I both were two of you guys. It took two of you guys to get through to me, right, and to help me along the way. And I thank you and Wayne for a lot of stuff and where I'm at today. So thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Yep, appreciate it.